I want to start with a story, one about someone who's relatively unknown but had an outsized impact on our modern world, all because he had the courage to step outside of his comfort zone. That person is a man named John Rock. In his youth, Rock was cocooned within the Irish Catholic community. As a teenager, he was more than just observant, he was devout. He attended Mass, he confessed regularly, he sacrificed things he enjoyed for Lent. And after graduating high school, though, Rock didn't know what he wanted to do next. John's father sent him to work as an accountant for the United Fruit Company on a banana plantation in Guatemala. This was John's first step outside of his small town Catholic bubble. And Rock hated the work and hated the tropics, but he became friendly with the plantation doctor. And so when he returned home, he decided to pursue medicine and became a doctor in 1918. And after medical school, Rock began his career in obstetrics and gynecology, working with women of all social classes throughout the Boston area. This period was instrumental in giving him life experiences outside of his very strict Catholic upbringing. And as a devout Catholic, Rock was a huge supporter of families. He encouraged his patients to have as many children as they could. But having witnessed firsthand the suffering yielded by unwanted pregnancies, he also pushed families not to have more than they could. Over the next 3 decades, Rock would become one of the foremost experts in fertility, even pioneering research that would eventually result in successful births through in vitro fertilization. Ironically, in researching and working with women hoping to conceive for so long, Rock and his colleagues also learned how to prevent pregnancies. Along with Margaret Sanger and Gregory Pincus, Rock would successfully develop the birth control pill and forever change the world. But Rock was plagued with a moral dilemma from the very start. Societal conventions at the time were largely anti-birth control, and especially as a devout lifelong Catholic, his accomplishments were in direct opposition to the church's long-standing position against the use of unnatural contraception. So after receiving FDA approval, Rock set out on a one-man campaign to garner the Vatican's approval for the pill. In 1963, Rock published a book outlining his case, The Time Has Come, a Catholic Doctor's Proposal to End the Battle Over Birth Control. The book landed him features in Time magazine and Newsweek, as well as an hour-long television special, and made him a bit of a celebrity. But 5 years later, in 1968, Pope Paul VI made the Catholic Church's opposition to the pill in his 7th encyclical letter permanent. Rock was crushed. John Rock left his comfort zone, discovered a new morality, and embraced it despite his personal discomfort. For this, he remained estranged from the church until his death. But women around the world gained a new form of bodily autonomy, an autonomy that has changed the course of human history. And it goes to show, it takes courage to step outside of your comfort zone, but there's world-shifting possibilities on the other side. And that's what I want to talk to you about. The deception of comfort. The lies that we can tell ourselves to keep the warm blanket up around our neck. There's immense potential outside of our comfort zones, but only if we're brave enough to step beyond what we know, both for individuals and businesses alike. Because here's the thing, comfort is king, and it's hard to argue against that. We often prioritize it above everything else. And this is especially true in industrialized nations. Comfort became a societal priority for the West in the 1950s. We were exhausted from 2 world wars and a catastrophic economic depression. They were desperately seeking stability, and many brands sought to capitalize on this post-war psyche by promoting comfort as a key product benefit. It was at this time that our modern culture of comfort was seeded, and we see the impacts of that today. We seek and expect comfort everywhere. We see it in our homes, huge McMansions with generous yards, quite literally insulating us from the outside world. We see it in our beds. The king-size bed wasn't even introduced until post-war 1950s, but today they make up as much as 50% of new mattress sales. And what about the Ford F-150 through the years? A truck that was initially built for practical use, with a larger bed has now become a comfort machine with a large cab that prioritizes driver and passenger comfort, and also often immaculate beds that have never hauled anything. In the pursuit of comfort, we become intolerant of any kind of discomfort that seeps in. Take travel delays. Some of us are absolutely lost. We fall apart after a 40-minute delay. We go to insane heights, sometimes quite literally to avoid discomfort. If you're uncomfortable in traffic and wealthy, you can always pay Blade $195 to get from JFK to Manhattan. And what about socializing? We're all living to cancel plans so that we can stay safe and comfortable at home and avoid the intense discomforts of things like putting on pants and talking to people. Beyond material comforts, there are also the emotional comforts. Helicopter parents ensure that their children's lives are highly controlled with no room for discomfort. And the gentle parenting and lawnmower parenting trends, both viral on TikTok, prioritize the comfort level of the child over discipline or learning. In adulthood, we're increasingly encouraged to set and enforce our boundaries and to cut off anyone who pushes outside of those boundaries. I'm uncomfortable, while valid in many situations, has become a blanket excuse for getting out of anything you don't want to do. All of these elements combine to create a cocoon. We wrap ourselves in comfort to avoid rocky roads and taking risks. And it sounds good, right? A life without discomfort. But it's a lie. A life without discomfort doesn't exist. By living with the primary objective of avoiding discomfort, we wind up in rigid, impermeable comfort zones that cause more harm than good. We worry that outside our comfort zone, there be monsters. And when you peek behind the veneer, you see that comfort zones enable stagnation. Take a look at the original definition of comfort zones coined in 1991. How many of you want to live a life characterized as limited? It's the antithesis of things like growth, of learning, or advancement. And yet so many of us are being limited. Have you ever heard of the term golden handcuffs? The idea that financial incentives can be so good that they keep us locked in a job that we don't want, we don't enjoy, we don't find intellectually stimulating or satisfying. In those handcuffs, we stagnate. We lose our drive, our hunger. We become lost in the deception of comfort zones. And beyond stagnation, comfort zones can lead to regression, not just standing still, but going backwards. They can lead us to adopt bad habits. They can isolate us, becoming worse versions of ourselves. And it starts with those lies that we tell ourselves, the stories that we spin in order to justify staying within those comfort zones. This is one of them, that my comfort is more important than your discomfort. Because ultimately, comfort zones are self-determined and self-preservational. They encourage us to indulge our most selfish, individualistic tendencies. We've all met a Karen or a Ken with their famous catchphrase, "I want to talk to your manager." Karen and Ken enter spaces and demand that their comfort be prioritized above everyone else's, willing to disrupt others' comfort to garner their own. And then there are NIMBYs, not in my backyard. People who oppose infrastructure like wind turbines, affordable housing, bike lanes, schools, and more for the fear of how it will impact their lives. Or those who protest against public breastfeeding. These people claim that the sight of breastfeeding makes them feel uncomfortable, and as a result force moms to feed their babies in bathrooms, in hot cars, or tiny closets. And what about the desire for convenience? Many of us order DoorDash or Uber Eats or some other delivery service and then complain about the high cost and need for tipping. But in many parts of the world, these delivery people can't make a living wage without those tips. Another big lie that traps us in our comfort zone is that present me is more important than future me, aka that sounds like a future Joey problem. Because ultimately, comfort zones are short-term thinking. It's a form of present bias. You can see this in recent discourse around weddings or bachelor or bachelorette party spending, where people are spending past their means for fear of having uncomfortable conversations about their financial limitations. You bite the bullet today, you figure it out tomorrow. The deception of comfort is showing up in the remote work movement as well. Many who were full speed ahead on remote work or work from home have now shifted towards hybrid after seeing the impacts it had on mental health, on belonging, on basic social skills. It turns out that the comfort of the business mullet, business on top, pajamas on bottom, might not be a worthy trade-off. And the younger generation is facing something similar. We're seeing the impacts of phone and social media addiction on social development and mental health, because some things can only be built IRL. And it begs the question, if comfort zones are causing us to stagnate or even regress, then why do we stay in them? Think of it this way. Many of our actions are not in pursuit of comfort. They're in avoidance of discomfort. Back in the 1960s, psychologist Isaiah Berlin called this freedom from. When we stay in our comfort zones, we have freedom from two uncomfortable connected feelings, pain and loss. The change and risk of leaving comfort invites the potential for pain. It's evolutionary. Thousands of years ago, if we ventured off of our normal routes, we risked getting attacked. If we tried eating a new kind of plant, we risked getting sick or dying. The comfort zone is a safety mechanism. The thing is, most of us aren't nomadic foragers. As a bunch of Western laptop people, it's very rarely poisoning or death waiting for us outside of our comfort zones. And that second motivator, loss, while getting out of your comfort zone opens up the potential for positive advancement, it also opens up the possibility of losing what you currently have. But it's not just evolutionary psychology. We stay in our comfort zones because brands and businesses reinforce them as well. The truth is, brands and businesses have been complicit in creating a widespread culture of comfort. And as a result, our comfort zones have become even more rigid. Because we're evolutionarily drawn towards comfort, it's an easy, reliable mechanism for brands to rely on and perpetuate. And while it may have started in the post-World War II era, it didn't end there. Fast forward to the internet age. Alongside the rise of interfaces and apps came the frictionless UX movement, a school of thought that said digital experiences should be as fast, easy, and yes, comfortable as possible. And if you want examples of this, look no further than dating apps. Originally designed to make dating easier, they may have actually made things harder. Now people are anxious about approaching potential dates outside the comfort of those apps. Their social skills are atrophying, and that is the regression that I'm talking about. And here's the inception level meta commentary. The business world is stuck in its own comfort zone based on perpetuating consumer comfort zones. The more businesses push comfort, the more consumers want it. And in turn, businesses keep needing to deliver on it. It's a form of co-deception. We're all locked in one big lie that comfort zones are working for us. Not only is this cycle harming consumers, it's harming innovation. Innovation inherently demands discomfort, stepping into the vast unknown in hopes of finding something better. There's a really simple lesson that history teaches us about comfort. The businesses that sit in their comfort zones are slow, preservationist, and intensely risk-averse. And unsurprisingly, many of them shudder or just fall completely off the radar. Because essentially, when you get comfortable, you get disrupted. Instead of wishing to be free from discomfort, we should embrace it as a natural part of advancement. Isaiah Berlin also shared a counterforce to freedom from, and that's freedom to. And he defined this as freedom that identifies the possibility to autonomously determine and achieve individual or collective purposes. its agency, its impact, its innovation. But it's not without difficulty. In fact, the potential for pain and loss is also baked into every single opportunity for moving forward. It's a foundational part of the bargain. And it turns out that yes, there is some merit to the trends of ice baths and cold showers, intermittent fasting, and black and white phones. All of these things are forms of exposure therapy and nervous system regulation. By putting yourself into discomfort, you're building up your discomfort tolerance muscle, the same muscle that will allow you to innovate and advance, take risks in your everyday. The awesome thing about all of this is that once you do it, it becomes easier to keep doing it. By stepping into discomfort, you're proving to yourself that many of the perceived threats of discomfort are all in your head. A future in which brands are actively stepping into discomfort is full of opportunity, of possibility, and progress. There are ripple effects. As brands step outside of their comfort zones, it propels competitors, entire industries, and even individuals to step outside of their comfort zones as well. This is precisely what happened with Tesla in the auto industry. Independent of how we feel about Elon Musk, Tesla spotted opportunity within the comfort zones of OEMs and disrupted the way this very traditional, comfort-oriented industry functions. The impact of Tesla's decision to pursue Freedom 2 filtered down to consumers, competitors, and governments, and beyond. Societally, we are now on a faster track to a cleaner, electrified future because everyone had to jump on board. And remember our friend Dr. John Rock? The cultural and societal impact that he brought to the world with the birth control pill was all due to his willingness to step outside into discomfort. Nothing really changes for consumers or society until we make the move from freedom from to freedom to, from comfort cocoons to discomfort in doses. But how? How do you do that? I reframe discomfort through something I think of as the discomfort diet. It begins with recognizing that you have a discomfort zone and knowing where it starts and where it ends. What's inside of your comfort zone? What's outside of it? And how is it holding you back? Holding back your stakeholders, your friends, your family, or even society at large. Next, it's about figuring out a productive balance of comfort and discomfort. We're not suggesting that you step into discomfort 100% of the time. As we demonstrated, comfort has its place. It's a stabilizer. But many of us are operating from a ratio of 0 to 100. What would it look like for you and your team to go to 90-10 or an 80-20 ratio? We can start small. I bike commute through all weather conditions. I take on projects I've never tackled before. I try to talk to strangers and tell people that are important to me how much I love them, even when it makes me uneasy. Then it's time to continuously monitor and push. What starts as uncomfortable will quickly become comfortable. Maybe you find ways for your team to step into discomfort together. Maybe you think on a broader scale. Each person in an organization's diet will look differently depending on the comfort zone you've been working from. What feels scary? What do you need? Start there. And once you've built up that discomfort tolerance muscle in little ways via your diet, you start to seek out discomfort. You move towards it as a reflex. Your comfort zone expands to include new things that had previously seemed impossible. You start to ask questions and embrace change. What technologies should you be investing in? What companies should you be partnering with? What consumer needs are going unaddressed? And importantly, where can you take steps to lead to societal progress? Because essentially, when you get uncomfortable, you get disruptive. That's all I wanted to talk about today. If you want to learn more about us, you can find it here at sylvain.co. Thanks.